Right, morning guys. So, it's nice and sunny this morning, so I'm just about ready to mix up a bit of paint. I'm just going to spray a little bit of thinners through the gun, just make sure it's right. I just pulled it apart, let it soak in some thinners last night, just to make sure there's no crap in it. Because that gun does give me issues. When I get a chance to get a new one, when we start spraying the Dodge, I'm going to throw that fucking thing away. I'll pinch the spring out of it and put it in the other blue gun, see if I can get that to work properly, since we lost the spring. I'll have to chop it down to put it in there. And I'll get a 2.5mm tip for the other primer gun so we can put it on a bit heavier. And I'll get myself another decent top goat gun, because that one is, it's sucking air from somewhere. It's a pain in the ass. But it'll do to spray these bolts and cleats, and a couple other little touch up, but a couple other little pieces. Like these pieces for the wheels, I've got them sitting there ready to go. They're giving them a light wee scuff this morning, and give them a quick wipe down and whatever. So I'm just going to hit the heads of these bolts and nuts, do the cleats, flick that mirror so it's got gloss black on it. It would look a bit weird if I spray it with rattle can because it's too flat. So I'll hit that because it'll be on the inside of the car. Yeah, and these, because these will be used on the new wheels, I'm assuming the new wheels won't come with these, but they could do. They're only there to hold, to help the cleats push against them to lock the bands onto the centres. Yeah, and once I've finished spraying, I'll use a little bit of the black, and I'll just go over these wheels again and just touch up any other little scratches, and hopefully with a bit of hardener it'll harden up a bit better and I won't pull out quite the same when I give them another wee buff later on. The paint will be a bit harder, so it shouldn't buff off the same, if you know what I mean. We've got a bit of a base on there with the other stuff that I put on there anyway, so, but just, yeah, we'll have to give it another hit. But yeah, so I'll do that. I'm actually just watching the boys from Ironhead do their live, a couple of lives they did this morning while I was doing some editing. So I didn't get the editing done as quick as I wanted to, but that's all good. I'll flick that to render at lunchtime. I'm back home, get another video up. So this will be, by the time you see this, the video would have been a couple ago, if you know what I mean. I've at least got enough footage there for a couple of videos yet. God, I need a higher tripod. I keep hinting, there's a nice one on Amazon. I just haven't freaking got around to getting one. And every time I'm in town, too many other things going on, I forget to look to see if there's any half decent ones for a reasonable cost around. This one's too low. It's only, is it 125 centimeters, which is about a bit over 4 foot. I like one that was probably about 5.5, 6. So I can sort of point it down. I actually seen Brent from Halfass. It's got quite a solid one that looks like it's a good sort of 5.5 footer, but then it's got you've got this big extension pole on it that you can hang out anywhere and look over shit. So you can have the tripod out here. It must have quite a good counterweight on it somewhere. But it's probably got a 3 or 4 foot pole on it. Probably, yeah, probably 4 foot that he can then hang the camera up. Obviously looking over the engine bays and hang it out to the side and lift it up high if he needs it and shit like that. So packing something like that would be awesome. But God, it's the cost of all these little frickin' bits and pieces drives you nuts. Next thing you know, you're frickin' $2,000 or $3,000 into fucking camera gear. Anyway, I'll get this paint mixed up. We'll get this shit sprayed. Because it won't take much to do this. It's a few minute job. It's a little bit fluffing around. So I have to wait to get a couple of coats on some of it. But yeah, and then we'll touch up the wheels. And then, yeah, I'll see. I'll probably go back to that gauge, to be honest. We'll start working with that. That's what I was meant to do this morning, was go see Dad. I might paint this stuff, go see Dad and have a talk to him about that gauge, get the paperwork back. I forgot about that. Righty. Righty, trying to get a freaking coat of paint, and them's a pain in the arse. I'm putting out the So let them cure a little bit, and then I might have to try and maybe turn them up the other way. If I can, and just rest them on the centre somewhere and then try and give them another coat. I think these here should be okay, I think. Might give them another wee, if we've got anything left after we've given them another coat, we'll give them another wee spray. I think all this stuff should be okay now, I think. This has all had a couple. That's had a couple. Oh, alright. So the light's a bit bright. I've just got the sun in here because it's nice and warm. But yeah, these look alright. For what they need to be, they look quite good. You only sort of see part of the face anyway, like in the, you don't see it all, so sometimes you see the inside of them, but you may as well paint it, stop it from rusting. So yeah, so we'll just have to let these flash a little bit, because you can see a bit of red there, but it's so freaking awkward. But we'll turn them around, and at least then we'll be able to get to get some of the bits we probably didn't get before very well. Right, so I just turned those pieces, those rings around, just re-sprayed them. I'm going to do some touch up on the wheels in a minute. But this new tube thing basically runs all the way up, and then so when this is in this, I put this in here like that. You can basically push it all the way through, and you can just keep going, if you know what I mean. Within a degree, like there's nothing there to hold it there. So went hunting for another nut. So went hunting for another one of these, because this has got a shoulder on it for that housing to come up against. Then you obviously have that nut in between, and you do it up tight against one leg. So to get past that problem, we started hunting for a nut, and you think we could figure out what thread it was, but in the end we actually found, because Dad's got that massive box of taps and dies, we actually found that it's the same thread but not tapered like a gas fitting. So we've got an old gas fitting, which will do the trick hopefully. So I'm going to cut just one of these pieces off and keep the other one spare, to wind on onto this piece as far as possible, obviously to where the thread stops. So they've stopped the thread, but they haven't put a shoulder on it. So hopefully I can wind this all the way into the thread stops, and that'll stop there, and then we can use the other little nut to jam up against it. Hopefully I might Loctite that onto here, if you know what I mean. So at least if you ever need to undo it, at least you can only have to undo that, and this should be Loctited on, and shouldn't have to pull out, if you know what I mean. So yeah, the frick, man, they took some hunting through all Dad's stuff to work it out. So I thought while I was waiting on that stuff, I'd go hunt for the bits and pieces I thought I might have needed. Got a little eyedropper bottle for that fluid. I washed it out with some spirits, white spirits. So I'll give it another rinse out with a brake cleaner. It's just the bottle it happened to be from. Mum's good at keeping lots of that sort of stuff. You never know when you might need a little bottle with an eyedropper or something like that. So that'd be perfect for doing that fluid. So you just have to make sure it's clean and dry. I grabbed a couple of bottles of brake clean, because there's some copper lines I want to clean out, and probably even that copper line there, even when I straighten it, I might spray some brake clean through it, and then I'll re-drain the tank and all the manifolds, and I'll turn the pressure down really low, and we'll just blow a little bit of gentle air through it, because there's not any moisture in this when you put this together, because it can alter the way it reads. So yeah, I'll re-drain the manifold and tank and all that sort of stuff, and have it on a really low pressure, probably only 10 or 15 psi, and just blow through that line, trying not to get any moisture build up, just to clear it out after I spray a bit of brake clean through those bits and make sure it's good. I might even do the same into the tank. I might squirt a bit of frickin' brake clean down through those lines. I think I've already done that. I've got the copper line, the old one for the fuel gauge, or for the oil pressure gauge. We're going to reuse that. We're just going to clean it up and reuse it, because it's that line, that particular size line's a bit awkward to get hold of. It's quite big. It's not like the smaller line that it would be now. It's a bigger line. That's sort of not really, you know what I mean? A lot of them would use this fine line. They'll be using that fine sort of type line, or it's way bigger on the back of that gauge. Sort of like the next level up, I think. I think it's a bit more of an unusual, because we were struggling to get little fittings, but we managed to get enough to do the job. So yeah, now I'm going to go do some touch-ups with this mixed paint, so at least I know how to harden. I've got a little bit left in the gun. I just want to give them another big flick in a few minutes. So I'll do all that, and then we'll come back to you. And I think Dad's going to turn up later on, just give me a bit of a hand with this gauge, because you got to do the old suck test to make sure you haven't got any leaks anywhere. And we're going to try and run those lines through. Might run the fuel line through and all that sort of stuff, so I'll knock all the trays out of the seats and stuff like that, so we can get in there a bit easier, and whatever, run those through and try and get a lot of that plumbed up too, maybe later on after lunch or something like that. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but I'll get this touched up, and then I can flick that and I can clean the gun, and then we can do a little more work on this gauge. Righty. I'm just trying to work out, get this gauge there, cut that nut back and wound that on there. I wound this actually in and tightened up the nut, but you can't maneuver this around the glass around to get it in there. So I'm just winding this back off. And we'll have to maneuver both in at the same time, I think. We'll have to try to kind of get it so you can kind of line them up at the same time, I think. Something there. Finagled position, right? That putty stuff, because I built up, this was broken partly away too, so I might just take a little bit of that out with a file or something, because I might actually, when I've got this in back in, I might actually mix up a little of that putty when we're happy with it. I might just push it in around that end to stop that from jiggling around, or something like that, or actually might even use a little bit of urethane or something, just poke it in there, so it's sort of like insulated, but not sealed off, if you know what I mean. So yeah, hopefully that'll just be enough to insulate it and stop it from rattling around, and you know, when it cures it'll be hard, stop it from vibrating and whatever and falling out and whatever else. One end. I won't do the other end until I get the other end of the car. I might just have to do it in the car. Kinda. So that's the gauge end. Because I'm not getting underneath the dash to do that. Righty, so I've got this little copper line just sitting up here in the meantime through the fold. I've got normal grommets and I just got a bit of that same frickin' rubber that I made all the little bump stops and crap out of to put in the middle of it, because I just don't have anything that's the right sort of size. But we just cut a piece up and made it half round and then just jammed it in there with the grommet. I've got another one over there to do the same thing with the other oil line and stuff. I'll just drill a hole through that's the right size and we'll poke that through as well. I don't think there's anything else goes through there because the electrical goes through that. So I've got it poked through to, you can see it here, through to about, I don't know, about out here somewhere. Just so I've got plenty inside. I can always poke a bit more inside if I need it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just run the fuel line through to the back and just half by get that where I want it and work out where to go from there, if you know what I mean. And then once I've got that through and up into wherever the fuel, where are we? Is that the tank? Yeah, this one here, this is to the end. So we'll get that line here up to here and do a nice loop and whatever, get that in and roughly cut off, and I'll leave it a bit long here because I'll probably have to buy Dad's cutter. I haven't got a copper or a line cutter, so I'll bring it out here and we'll leave an extra 12 inches, sort of 6 inches out here on it, and then I'll go along and I'll start working out all these clamps and work out where we need them. I'll get it basically in rough position, and then once I've got the clamps on and half started for the fuel line, then I will go underneath, and I want to put a little bit of possibly, where are we, a little bit of this over the copper line, I think, one of these anyway, and shrink that down and just cut some little slices off and poke it back down the line once I figured out how many clamps I'm going to have on it, just to protect it because it's so freaking light. And you just heat shrink it on, you know, or how much, whatever width those little clamps are. Doesn't really matter at the moment, you know what I mean? So I've got plenty of that on there, and if worse comes to worse, I'll put a slightly heavier piece over it, but I can't put too much because the clamp's got like a little bump and then another bump for the fuel line to hold it in place, but I just don't want it to rub through that. But it's not likely to rub through the copper, that it's fairly heavy wall, but that's so freaking thin, like a little bit of protection's not going to hurt it. So we'll get underneath there, we'll drag that down there, work out where it's going to go, and go from there, I guess. Right, a bit of an update. So I thought I might have been able to use the fittings that we bought, but then I come to realise that that's a big fucking fitting on here, and I need to use the original. So I managed to get the original little flares off the other tube. These are steel. I actually thought they might have been copper, but now I've got to try and get them on here. It's going to be fun. I might just have to run around this with a little bit of sandpaper or something like that and just see if I can hopefully reduce the size a little bit. And I might just have to try and deburr these a little for me trying to get them off, and hopefully they go on all right. But yeah, so I can't use the fittings that we got, unless maybe I could have to find an adapter to go from that down to a more modern fitting. But I think it's just as easy to use this and hope like it doesn't leak, and I might have just put a bit of that thread seal around there and then wind it on. I was going to replace this too, but then I just realised that you can't get it out. Hopefully, I kinked it a bit the other day. I think it should be okay. I don't think it wasn't like crushed hard over, so it should be alright, I think. Because it was sitting up here against the seat, and I put the seat base down, yeah, pushed against it, and I sort of pushed it out of the road a bit, but yeah, afterwards. But yeah, hopefully it's alright. Yeah, I still haven't got in here to freaking put a bracket in here, but I actually just dropped the tank bolt out so I could just drop that, let the tank drop down a little bit. But yeah, we'll see if we can get these on before I bugger off home anyway. Right, so we got that on there. I think that vent line, I'm going to cut it off down close and get a bit of rubber hose, bit like this bit of fuel line or something like that, and actually run it over top of the tank, and where the bracket is on the other side, or at the back, but on the opposite side to the exhaust, I'm going to just zip tie it to there or something like that, just so if it does happen to blow fuel out, at least it's over the back, not near the exhaust. And yeah, because this here is sort of like partly kinked now from the seat tray being pushed in there, me beating it out of the road and not realising it kinked it, and I can't replace it. Well, not easily. I'm just going to cut it down shorter. It'll end up being about 2 inches long, and just slip a bit of tube over it and a bit of hose over it and put a hose clamp on it and just run it over the other side of the road. I think it'd be safer. At least it's not going to get knocked and banged. And I'm going to I think I'll let all those clamps go. I'll just move this back 2 or 3 inches so I can, pull it forward and just snake it so it's a bit closer out there, away from here. Might try and get a clamp on here. I don't know, because there's no other holes along the side, so I can't quite get in there, if you know what I mean. But I don't know if I'll get a clamp on here or not. Not quite sure. We'll see. But yeah, I just need a little bit more length, so we'll do that in the morning. Run it up, and then yeah, I'll finally get this on here. And carefully snake that way down here, and we also need to put clamps up here. I got more. I hardly used any along there. Like I need another one of these, if that'll fit in there somewhere, without being too long. Yeah, down there might be alright. To just see, make sure that tray doesn't hit it. As long as I can get my hand in there to get enough in there with that, hopefully with that tank and partly undone, it might be to get in there. Get one on them, hopefully. We'll see. And then, so we're through here, but I haven't really gone any further from that. I haven't anchored it anywhere, so I need to suss out some spots to anchor it down in here, and then come up, obviously the firewall here, possibly up to this, maybe grab onto here or something like that, because there are some little P-clips sort of type thing. There's a few of those, so I might be able to use a couple of those just to hold that on the firewall. We'll see. Got plenty of clips and whatever. We'll suss something out, you know what I mean? I don't know what else these were used for. I'm assuming this top one's probably for wiring, and it probably had a fairly heavy, a bit of protection around it. I'm not really sure, if you know what I mean. but the only wiring going back here is to the tail light, so I'm guessing probably just have to run it across and then zip it over to there, whereas originally it probably would have come up here. The tail light would have been on the other side, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it's alright. We can do that. Or we can just use the other ones to run the wiring up the other side. There's plenty of holes over there, there's plenty of freaking clips, so yeah. Might end up just running that wire up the other side. It's probably what it was meant to be for. You know, I said, like, you know, with the tail that was on this side, you just run the wiring up that one side with those clips, but yeah, they probably had 2 lots. So I got plenty of plenty of bolts and clips to do them, so that's cool. We'll suss that out in the morning, get that up here, get that fitted, get all these fittings on, and hopefully all done up and tight, and then we might better, yeah, see if we can get some fuel in there somehow, and yeah, we may put an electric fuel pump in the system somewhere, even if it's just to flick it on for a minute to bring it up to here to help. But yeah, if it needs it, sort of type thing. Probably one of those situations where you could probably have it just so if you happen to be pulling uphill or something like that and you're running out of vacuum, you know, if you're doing a long haul, you can just give it a bit of a hit for 10 seconds, fill that back up, you know, you're not having to worry about it. You know, instead of it, you know, you say, oh shit, you know, we're about to, you know, we figure we've got a big climb up here, you know, it's going to take us a minute to get up this hill, or whatever, you can just hit that button and flick a fuel pump on just to keep the fuel up to there, you know, at just a low pressure or something like that. You can put just even at a couple of psi just to help pump fuel through so it was slow. But anyway, we'll carry on tomorrow. Right, morning guys, so welcome back again. So I'll carry on with this fuel line and bits and pieces this morning. So we'll get this all buttoned up and work out where I need to finish everything. First thing I do is just loosen off those clamps. Well, just unbolt those clamps and see if we can jiggle that bit of fuel line back a little bit, a couple inches, so I can get it that corner tighter, and go from there, I guess. And right, so let's see to go borrow Dad's flaring tool, because these are the old flare types instead of the these little collars, and then the fitting goes over top. Instead of take this out and went round to Dad's and just flared a bit of very uniform fit these fittings on the X. Well, that worked. I just measured the, obviously the vacuum line up. Just found a drill that was close. I drilled into that fitting, tinned the pipe, and just tinned a little bit of flux onto the fitting before I put it in there, and then just heat it up. We'll give it a wee tart up, just knock a bit of that extra solder off. because this here is actually part of that. So yeah, I'll just cut it off and be fine, hopefully. Oh, so that'll level like that, and we'll just put a couple of caps in it, eh? Look a bit wonky, but should be right. Just kidding, we'll cut it off. Better make sure I cut the right one off, eh? Oh yeah, we're cooking with gas now, bruh. Cooking with gas now. Alrighty, so I'm getting ready to put this in and put fluid in it. I just made a little cap, I guess, to go over the top. I'm guessing that's why it's got that little freaking indentation on it. To put a little, just a little cap to stop the dirt and shit getting in there, but not to seal it from the top, if you know what I mean. So it will push the fluid up without it being capped, if you know what I mean. So I've got the little line in there. We had about that much. What do we have? About 1.5 foot-ish, a bit more spare copper little pipe. I pushed a bit more into here. You know, I probably added an extra 1/2 foot into the cabin because I ended up with quite a lot left over. So I just pushed a bit extra into there and sort of just, I wouldn't say curled it around, but just made it so there was a bit more in there. So if something does happen to happen and it happens to break the connection or something like that, there's a little bit extra in there so you can maybe re-solder it if you needed to, or you know, if something wasn't quite right, you could cut it off and shorten it up or whatever, if you know what I mean. Like if there does happen to be a leak and something doesn't quite work properly, you know, we've got a little bit of length in there to maybe take it, I'll sweat that fitting out of the old piece and try again, sort of type thing, or whatever, if you know what I mean. We've got a little bit of leeway. So yeah, so it clamped in here. I haven't really got anything to clamp it with down here. I'm just not really quite sure what we'll do here, down here. But I just put a little bit of insulation tape on it. I wrapped a bit of a loop around the fine copper tube and then a couple of loops around there. I've done that in a few places along, just because there's nowhere else to clamp it, if you know what I mean. I'm just such a little fine tube. I just hate to see it flat browned. And there's no real really to put these or an extra one of those in. It's where it sort of goes through the chassis, back through the chassis in places and stuff like that. I've just put a bit of duct, or put a tape around it and taped it to the other tube when it's close to that piece, just so it can't move around. I've kind of done the same here too, because there's nowhere to really anchor anything, and I don't really want to pull this in tight into there to put another clamp on. So I've just put a couple of bits of tape around there in the meantime. I might put a couple of zip ties or something like that, but I just threw that on there because it was easy, and we can work out maybe something, a slightly better solution later. But in the meantime, it sort of gets it done. So I'm about to try and put fluid in this freaking thing. I think what I'll do is I'll get it in here, get it level, make sure it's level both directions or really close to level, and then just slowly get a little bit of that fluid out with that dropper and just keep dropping it in until I can see it come up to the 0. And do that. So wish me luck. I'll bring you back in a second. can see there. I'll zoom in a little bit. Bring in. I've got it so it's just below. Hopefully, if you know what I mean. So it'll just, I think it might be better just being a little bit low. So it's got like a, you know, when it comes down just below the zero as like a reserve. So when you hit zero, you know, you get just a touch left. I think that makes sense to me, if you know what I mean. I'd rather have a little bit below it than a little bit above. So, you know, when you get down to the empty mark, it's, when you get down to the zero, you get just that, you should have a sneak a little bit fuel, you know. If you're 5 miles from a fuel station, you're on zero, you know, you got a little bit left in your tank to get there. Maybe. You know what I mean? Right, Heidi, go frickin' cover this up and put it somewhere. Interesting. Let's put the, make sure the eyedropper was pretty cleared out, and it's just coming back down again, so I just held that in there with a wee bit of pressure, and we'll just put a little bit of gentle pressure in there. Looks quite cool, isn't it? It's fairly easy to see. Settle again and we'll put it back in. Very interesting way to make something work, isn't it? Very, very interesting. Oh, well. Right, morning guys. So welcome back again to Outlaw Kustoms. Not sure where these fallen videos. I get too far behind sometimes. But anyway, this morning, I think what I'm going to do is try and get the wheels together, completely together if I can. I'm going to put bearings in the front, wheels, and then get to muck around a little bit with the seals for the piece. I might do the seals last of all for everything, because I want to put the tyres back on, the old rims, get them situated, get bearings in the front hubs, and then put the rims and tyres on the wheels if I can, if I get enough time, because it'll take a wee bit of mucking around, because obviously I'm trying to be gentle, so it'll take a wee while, and then maybe if I get a chance, I might measure up for, see if we can put rubber seals in the front wheels. I've got the pieces for the belt seals, but I might measure them up for rubber seals and just see whether we can get a modern seal that'll fit. I just think it'll be better. So yeah, we'll work with that. So I think first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear a little spot on the carpet down here so I can put the rims and tyres together, and then I can just lay the rims on the carpet and not worry about it getting scratched up and shit on the concrete. It'll just save a bit of rash, I suppose, and then we will try and we'll get the bearings in the front wheels, and then we'll see if we can put the two together and go from there. And then if I've got time, well, yeah, I'll probably end up putting the front wheels on first, but if we get this together, at least we can work on maybe getting something else done here, because I'm getting really, really close to running out of kind of things to do. I still got the front sheet metal on properly, but we haven't got any bright work yet, and it could be a wee bit before we get it. And now the main thing we're really waiting on is wiring. The only other thing I've got to do yet is, I didn't really do it. I don't think I did the ending video yesterday. I started mocking these up. The radius on these isn't quite right,
it's not far off, but I might have to just measure these and see whether these pieces are thicker, and I might just have to shave a little bit off them just to try and, not that you're probably ever going to be pushing this window way out anyway, but yeah, once you get to about here, as you can see, it's hitting, the radius starts getting too tight. Unfortunately, they made it a bit tight on here. They probably should just laid it down a little bit. I think the radius is probably right. It's just, yeah, they put it on too steep or something. I don't know. It looks like it sort of kicks up, or they should have just run it a little bit flatter. It probably would have been fine. You know what I mean? So yeah, we might try and, but I think this is a little bit fat too. I'm not going to just take a little bit off it. And yeah, I don't think it really needs to go much past here anyway to get decent airflow. You know what I mean? But yeah, I just think it's a bit short. It probably should have been out here, maybe another ½ an inch sort of type thing. I can push it up there, but it really flexes and forces it. And the joint on the other one, where they've done like a dovetail joint and they soldered it in, that's actually partly cracked already. So I'll put the first one on, because that was the first one I put on. I pushed it out to see where it went, and yeah, it flexed it quite a lot. It was like, ooh. So yeah, so we might do a little bit of shaping in here. There's a few little bits and pieces to do yet, but we're running out of little bits and pieces to do without all the last bits in here. So yeah, all that fuel gauge, everything all in properly. I've still got to put the bolts, finish put the bolts and the fenders and stuff, but I might do that when I do all the front stuff. Once we actually do all the full button up around the front, and while I'm doing all that stuff, I might finish all that stuff off, you know, make sure it's all buttoned up properly. I put the rear diff cover on too last night, or late yesterday. Put that on, put a bead of seal around there, put that on, so that's all buttoned up. I made sure that the bung was partly loose, so we can fill it, so it's not tight. I made sure that was loose. Now we're still going to muck around, put the tail light on yet. There's lots of little, there's a few little things yet. I've still put these together and put them on. There's a little bits of stuff, but I kind of need wiring. That stuff, you know, I've still got to put the headlights and stuff together. There's a wee bit of work when I get that stuff back, but it's still not a lot. You know, I'm running out of stuff to do now, kind of thing. So we're close with the motor stuff. I think, you know, really, if we had fuel and the right oil, yeah, I probably could start it without that piece on the back of the box. Just put a little bit of oil on the box, as long as it didn't spray it out the back. We could probably just run it for, you know, at least make sure it fired up, then shut it off. Because we even got that back part in the box. You could probably put a little in there just to make sure it had lubrication. If it dribbled a little bit out, it probably wouldn't hurt just to run it for ½ a minute sort of type thing. Just to make sure it run. Just to check the systems, if you know what I mean. But yeah, really that's all we need. We only just really need fuel and oil and we could jerry rig the rest of it to fire it up. Yeah, just, yeah, it'd be nice if that wiring kit would fucking turn up. But yeah, we're getting really close. We are. We're still gonna hook up the oil pressure line to the gauge. We're trying to find a fitting because it's a funnier size. It's not like the other stuff. It's smaller. It's in between that little fine fucking tube and the bigger fuel line. I don't know what size it is. It's small anyway. But anyway, I'll stop waffling. I'll have clear my surface spot over here and we'll get these wheels together. Alrighty, I might try and do my best to show you how to put one of these together. Just to give you a rough idea. Yep, I don't like these wheels at all. And it come back with a special tool to help squeeze them in and expand them. And I just broke it. This is still the first one. To get this to splay out and to join at the end, you know, there's obviously a special tool that you obviously hook in both sides and probably pull it over or something like that, so it just levers those out. But I don't have it. And that's a tool that Dad has for the old rugby, and now I've broken it. Split the frickin' casing down here. Unfortunately, it's been obviously being repaired a few times, which is a pain in the ass. So I bought back some tyre levers and a bit of tyre shine to help me get it on. I managed to get it on kind of without that, with it at the same time, if you know what I mean. But yeah, just to get these frickin' ends to force out to get in the right place. So I'm gonna have a wee look in the owner's manual and just see if there's anything in here that indicates a special tool for that. Just so I can see whether I can maybe make something. So I think there's some pages on doing the wheels. Yeah, here we go. This is what I need. This thing here. Let's have a look, see what's involved in with this. See if maybe I can make one.
Yes, to pull these wheels apart and pull them together. See, because I've got that pin that goes in there, which locks the wheels together. And then, yeah, it's got this special tool. So it obviously goes in there. Helps pull them in and push them apart. I wonder if I can make something. I wonder. To make it strong enough is the biggest fucking problem. Because I have got some rod here, but it's not high tensile or anything, if you know what I mean. So we need one of those to make life easier. So it's obviously to remove, you know, the wheel, but it obviously would be the same thing putting it back on. Interesting. And this has a little tag on it that clamps it up, so you can put the tyre on. I don't need to find one of them. Because see, the disc wheels are different, apparently. Oh no, it's just the same thing, it's just slightly different, but the same. So I need that tool to do it easily, because that's a bitch. I'll make something. Oh, let's see if I can come up with a plan Z. So we get some proportions off this, a rough idea, if you know what I mean. I'll take some photos. Tweak these just slightly past 90, because I want them to try and hook in there a bit. So I just want to shave these down. I'm not going to have to shave them down a lot, and then we'll probably have to just nick them off a bit shorter.